level of service should I have? In essence, that really depends on what stage in the life cycle of your business you are currently at, how your business is structured and what your plans are for the future. However, here are some guidelines as to the minimum that you will need. For a day-to-day, certainly monthly service anyway, you will, as a business owner, need someone to do your bookkeeping for your business. This could be something that you choose to do yourself in the early stages. But I'd recommend bringing someone in on a bookkeeping basis as soon as possible. I don't advocate doing it yourself. There are various ways that you can do this. You can outsource to a UK bookkeeper or get your own outsourced executive assistant type service, or you could pass it to an accountant or someone in your business. You can offshore, employ somebody directly. And if you want to grow your business, I definitely recommend it's a really smart move to free up time, because they'll be able to deal with all the day-to-day transactions, processing the purchase invoices, all that kind of stuff that obviously goes with that, doing the VAT returns, the value-added tax, which can be done quarterly or monthly or even annually. And on a day-to-day basis, but certainly weekly and definitely monthly, you need to have clarity on your numbers. You need to be freed up to do what's important to grow your business. So using something like a cloud-based software will enable your bookkeeper or your bookkeeping to be done remotely. And you're going to be able to log on and access your numbers from anywhere in the world at any time 24/7. Cloud-based software like Xero, QuickBook Online and many others have made this possible. And they also have a whole host of additional add-on apps which enable the processing of invoices and other bookkeeping tasks to be done much quicker and automated, which clearly saves time either for you, the bookkeeper, and ultimately that means less money and it frees up time to use elsewhere. So whether that's you growing your business or your bookkeeper being able to chase the outstanding debt, you've got more time to do other things. I definitely recommend getting a suitably qualified person though to set this up. Cloud-based software that works as efficiently as possible. Because if you don't, you get garbage in, garbage out. A lot of cloud-based software will enable you to set up bank rules, which again enables you to automate the process and make it quicker. Another service as vital as the bookkeeping service for any business owner will need is help and support and information in order to make the decisions and manage their business to grow it. Now this could be done in a number of guises, clearly. Most serious business owners meet ideally monthly and in some cases quarterly with their accountant to review their business, their budgets, their forecasts and management accounting reporting pack. Management accounts show a picture of exactly how a company is performing. They will discuss the actual progress of the business against the annual budget, the latest forecast and the management accounts, and understand what's happening and discuss any corrective action needed to bring the business back in line. Discussing the overall health of the business, setting new targets and objectives for the next quarter or month, depending on the time frame of the service, and the tax implications for the business. You may look at what the margins are and are they being maintained? Has the business got enough cash? And where is it being spent? These meetings will also help you to identify whether you're growing and where you need to invest your time and effort. This monthly or quarterly check-in or board meeting with a suitably qualified and experienced growth-focused, commercially savvy accountant will the best money that you can spend. They are your finance partner, supporting you on your journey. So effectively, you've got your own finance director. Obviously, for a growing business who employs more than yourself, then you're going to have staff. And so you will have payroll obligations. So again, a monthly service usually, although it can clearly be weekly or 4-weekly when you pay your staff. So you'll need to operate a payroll. You will need someone to deal with this to ensure that the correct information is produced at the right time and it's maintained and submitted monthly via a system called real time to HMRC, that's Her Majesty's Customs and Excise, and you will then obviously need to pay your staff and pay HMRC the relevant amount of money for taxes and national insurance contributions, not just for the employee but also from the employer perspective, and you need to pay it on time. Coupled with this, if you've met the relevant criteria in terms of age of employee, number of employees, salary levels, there are minimums that you have to have, an auto-enrolment scheme needs to be then set up. And you need to auto-enrol your employees if they've met the relevant criteria. Oh, and by the way, not only the employee has to contribute, but so does the employer, and these levies are rising over the coming years. Now, this is not really an accounting function as such. It's something, but it is something that needs to be administered by them, and so it falls within payroll. So again, if you pay your staff weekly or monthly, then you'll have to deal with the auto-enrolment weekly or monthly. And there are various rules and regulations on what you can and can't say when setting up the auto-enrolment scheme and talking to your staff. You could find yourself in very hot water. So it's not something that, so if it's something, that you've already not got, then I would encourage you to speak to an independent financial advisor or your own advisor if you've already got one. And they'll be able to help you on the schemes that are available and the best choices of those schemes for you, the employer, and your employees. Your accountant or bookkeeper will also be able to help you, but from an administration point of view, and obviously can only advise you from an employer point of view. And obviously there will be value in those relevant reports and administering them and sending them off to HMRC and the pension regulator. And also the auto-enrolment pension scheme that you've chosen. So there's lots of administration that goes with it. Once you've dealt with your payroll duties and your bookkeeping, as we've said, and supporting the growth of the business, then you'll need a management accounting service. After that service, you'll then be required to produce annual accounts and tax returns, which most accountants call the compliance service. This is currently done once a year, although HMRC are looking at changing the tax system from an annual service to a quarterly service under an initiative called Making Tax Digital. Sorry, the accountants, we call it Making Tax Difficult. Whether you go down the route of being a sole trader or a partnership or a limited company or a limited liability partnership, it will still apply to you. You will still need to produce some level of annual accounts and tax return for HMRC from both the business perspective and a personal perspective. And the personal perspective, we call it the self-assessment tax return. As I've already mentioned, this is currently done annually, although with the advent of Making Tax Digital, which is looming on the horizon, in the future all businesses and companies will need to submit their information quarterly to HMRC. And if you're a limited company or a limited liability partnership, you've got further duties. Because you need to submit what's called a set of statutory annual accounts to Companies House by a certain date after your year-end date, which will have been notified to you when you first set up your company. If you don't do this, you will be fined, and this fine will escalate quite quickly the longer they are overdue. You will also have to submit your corporation tax return to pay your business tax to the deadline for HMRC. And let's not forget your personal self-assessment tax return. If you get this information to them shortly after your year-end date, so there are no fines, are ever incurred. You do usually receive reminders from your accountant as to when to bring the information in, so everything can be produced and also submitted on time, if applicable, once a year. After that, I would also recommend that you sit down and plan the following year as a separate exercise. Most business owners do this a couple of months before the company's year-end date, or alternatively in October for the new calendar year. This is something that you may want to do with your accountant, or you may want to do it on your own first, or with your family. Then you may want your accountant to check it and just make sure it looks realistic and convert it into a company plan. And then once you've done that, you can review it for you if you've chosen to do it yourself. You will also need some level of business and personal tax review, again on a monthly, quarterly or annual basis, depending on the complexity of your business and your personal circumstances. This could include things like reviewing your business and personal expenditure to ensure you are as tax efficient as you can be, so that you don't pay the taxman more than your fair share of tax. I would expect these reviews to discuss your personal salary, your dividend policy, to ensure that you are still in line and still current with your personal and family requirements and align with any changes in legislation or tax implications. For example, the dividend tax that came in. Obviously, there will be other tax planning requirements that crop up from time to time, like pension planning with your financial advisor and the current future tax implications of that. Also capital gains on any sale of shares, property, land, etc. that needs to be considered, and the implications in that will be in the usual business tax planning that occurs in the normal course of business, covering things like depreciation policy, purchase or sale of assets. Might be something like lease versus purchase of equipment or cars, for example, and whether a company should purchase a company car for an employee or whether you or director, or whether you should do it personally in order that you find the most tax efficient option for you and your business. And, finally, you need to consider, as well as in the service, some level of support. How much support do you need outside of the services that are applicable to you and your business? There will always be things that crop up in your business that you need support or help with. Maybe something like a HR issue relating to staff that you want to discuss initially as the best way forward before getting further specialised help, usually legal, maybe to review some new terms and conditions, whatever. You may want to acquire a new business or sell your business and exit because of ill health or retirement. So you may need some guidance on the best way to go about this. You need to consider whether you've got the current level of support in your existing package or whether this needs to be taken as an extra service. You may also need some one-off pieces of work or consultancy. So you may need a mentoring business support service in a particular area of your business, pricing for example. You may need some analysis doing of customer profitability or whether your marketing spend is effective and what you need to spend more on and less on, whether it's working. As I've said, looking at pricing policy, that's set up. Is it the most efficient and best way for your business? Are there any additional services that you could potentially have or you could bundle together in a package to get more sales and ultimately more profit? Again, it depends on what you value. What do you need as a minimum each and every year? And do you want to pay for it up front in a fixed price agreement monthly? Or do you want to pay for that additional consultancy type of work when you actually need it? Obviously, if you pay for it as a one-off, then it could potentially cost you more than bundling it in and, paying it over a 12-month period as a fixed price agreement. Hopefully that's given you some idea of what different levels of services you could have, and ultimately you now know what you should have.